years, he returns to Vienna and starts performing magic shows. One day, during one of his shows, Crown Prince Leopold and Sophie are attending the show, but they fail to recognize each other. Leopold is soon to become king, and he is set to marry Sophie. As planned by King Bante, Eisenheim attempts to perform a trick involving a sword without any support during a public performance, which leaves the audience impressed. He even invites members of the audience to try lifting the sword, but no one succeeds except for one person who appears shocked. However, when the prince attempts to lift the sword, he also fails. This leads to embarrassment for the prince, who subsequently bans Eisenheim's shows. After that, Sophie urges Eisenheim to leave the area, fearing for his life, as the prince's soldiers are capable of killing him. However, Eisenheim remains fearless, and the two share a romantic night together, reminiscing about their past. Subsequently, it is revealed that the prince's special police force, led by Walter, is surveilling Sophie. Walter informs the prince of Sophie's whereabouts and her meetings with the magician. The prince becomes very angry upon hearing this, and summons Sophie to meet him at the hunting lodge. He is here in a state of intoxication because he is repeatedly consuming alcohol. He informs Sophie of his intention to announce their marriage in 2 to 3 days, but Sophie firmly declines, confessing that she does not wish to marry. Upon hearing Sophie's refusal, the prince grows even angrier. After some time, we hear Sophie screaming as she rides a horse, which quickly leaves the lodge heading west. We suspect that the prince might have attacked Sophie. The following day, Sophie's lifeless body is discovered in a pond. However, the prince's servants remain silent, and Walter wrongfully imprisons someone else for Sophie's murder. Eisenheim appears profoundly saddened by Sophie's demise, and eventually closes all of his shows, living a solitary life. After a few days, he resumes his magic performances, which are markedly different from his previous ones. His popularity soars due to these performances. After the show, Walter meets with Eisenheim, and threats are made to stop his shows. Learning about Eisenheim, the prince contemplates having him arrested. Later, we witness the prince changing his appearance and attending one of Eisenheim's shows. Eisenheim intends to reveal a magic trick by lifting a curtain, but during the same show, he purportedly summons Sophie's spirit, claiming that her murderer is present. The prince, wearing numerous disguises, becomes frightened and interrupts the performance. He urges Walter to arrest Eisenheim on charges of fraud. Subsequently, Eisenheim is indeed arrested. During questioning, Eisenheim insists that it is all an illusion, asserting that he can't bring back the deceased. Due to the lack of evidence, Eisenheim is released, but the police caution him against performing the Sophie's spirit trick again. Later on, Eisenheim contacts his manager and transfers his remaining assets to his name, declaring that this is his final show. The following day, Eisenheim's magic show begins once more, featuring Sophie's spirit. Walter has already alerted the police, and they are surrounding Eisenheim, hoping to witness the summoning of Sophie's spirit. However, after some time, they realize that Eisenheim is no longer present. To their astonishment, they come to the realization that Eisenheim has been killed. His final magic trick is being executed by his spirit, and the police are attempting to apprehend Eisenheim, but their efforts are in vain. Eisenheim's spirit is vanishing before everyone's eyes, leaving them in shock. Subsequently, Walter begins reflecting on the events of the past few days and learns that the prince has murdered Sophie. He recalls that the prince had previously killed one of his girlfriends in a similar manner. Walter is now beginning his own investigation into the case. During his investigation, he discovers a locket belonging to Sophie, which Eisenheim had gifted to her as a child. Additionally, the prince's diamond-encrusted sword is found at the same location where Sophie had been murdered. Walter worries that if this prince becomes king, he could misuse his powers. He is deeply upset with the prince by this. Now, Walter is deciding to support the truth. Firstly, a letter is being written to Walter King's staff to inform them that the prince is planning to kill his father. The prince has cost the lives of many people and is dangerous. After this, Walter confronts the prince and says, "I have told the whole truth about you to the king." However, the prince tries to make Walter understand, saying, "I did not kill Sophie. All of this is part of Eisenheim's planning." but Walter doesn't believe it. Prince takes out his gun, aiming it at Walter. The prince's plan is to make Walter's murder look like a suicide. However, at this moment, the king's soldiers arrive. The prince realizes that he can escape no longer. This realization leads the prince to commit suicide by shooting himself. Next, we see Walter exiting the vehicle, holding Sophie's locket in his hand, lost in thought. On his way, Walter encounters a rescuer who introduces themselves and hands him a notebook. At that moment, Walter realizes that Sophie's locket, which he has put in his pocket just seconds ago, is missing. Walter begins searching frantically and grows suspicious of Eisenheim. Walter sketches a portrait of the man, but something seems off about the man's appearance, and Walter comes to a profound realization that everything that has been happening in the past few days is an illusion, orchestrated by Eisenheim. When Sophie had gone to meet the prince, she had mixed something in his drink that rendered the prince's brain completely non-functional. He could not understand what was happening to him. Sophie pretended to cry and left the sword with blood, making it appear as though the prince had attacked Sophie. After that, Sophie rode a horse and left the scene, seemingly in a state of unconsciousness. The following day, her body was sought after. Eisenheim had administered a medicine that briefly stopped her breathing and heartbeat, convincing the doctor that Sophie is dead. People believed that Sophie's body was in the pond since the previous night. After retrieving Sophie from the pond, Eisenheim had brought her to his house and revived her with his medicine. Sophie had then started living in a farmhouse. Eisenheim did all this just to get the prince to give up. Eventually, Sophie and Eisenheim start a new life far away from this place. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more. Thanks for watching, and see you at the next one.